All right, I hope you had a good weekend and I got your test graded. They are in Synergy. Your scores are in there, the percentages. And once everybody gets those in, I still have some that haven't turned it in yet. They haven't till the deadline of the following week. So once everybody gets that taken, I'll probably post a video of the answers and go through them that way. That way you can check and see which ones you missed. It'd be, I went through half point here, a point here, depending on how much you missed it by. And good scores overall, but if you're kind of wondering which ones you missed, just wait till that video comes out. That way, once everybody takes it, then the answers will be out there. We are going to move into the next thing here. We're still keeping percentages in here as we go on a little bit, but I want to talk about something that you deal with now as a student every day, and that's something we call an average. Your grade is an average. Okay, so I'm not saying you have an average grade, it's that your grade is an average. So we're going to talk about what an average is, some other words for it, and some uses for it. Sometimes that you'll see even beyond school or grades or other things. If you've ever heard the term 4 out of 5 or 3 out of 5 or something, it doesn't even have to be out of 5, it can be out of anything. But I know you see commercials, 4 out of 5 dentists recommend this toothpaste, and you're always like, well, what was wrong with that other dentist? Was he the right one? But basically, this is an average, okay? 4 out of the 5 recommend this or do this. It could be 2 out of 10. That would be a bad average. But this is what we call an average. Another thing, some people say 50% of people, 50% of the people or 75% of the people think this. And so that's dealing with an average. And then, of course, like I mentioned, your grades. That's something that you deal with every day. That is an average. Your percentages are your averages. So we're going to be keeping it for us. We're going to be working with percentages because we know what a percent is. We know that when we get an answer with a decimal, what to do with that to make it a percent. So let's go back to this one, 4 out of 5. How would that be an average? What percentage of, let's keep it dentist, what percentage of the dentists then recommend whatever they're recommending? So what we have to do is we're going to make this a fraction first. Okay, and this is going to be the number that we use. Now, I know when I say fraction, everybody kind of freaks out, but it's not going to be, we're not going to be adding fractions. We're not going to be doing our fraction rules. We're just looking at the fraction, and we're just going to use it as a division, way to write the division. But basically, if I have out of 5, that's going to be, if I had 5 out of 5, that would be 100% of the dentist recommended. So what I put down here is what it's out of. I put, okay, well, the most I could have, I can't have 6 out of 5 dentists recommended. If you ever see that, then you think, wait a minute, they did something wrong. Or they're trying to sell you something, wrong, by doing that wrong. But basically, this is the most you could have, is 5. 5 out of 5, you could have 1 out of 5 or 0 out of 5, but you couldn't have 6 out of 5. Okay, so 5 dentists is the most. And so to find what average this is or what percentage of dentists use it, then I put the number that actually did recommend it on top. So 4 out of the 5 dentists recommended whatever they're selling. Well, now this is a division problem. Okay, that's all a fraction problem is. Those that have me in a math lab know I broke down fractions as saying all it is just writing 4 divided by 5. This is a fraction sign. I put the 4 on top, the 5 on bottom, and it's 4 divided by 5. Well, when you put in your calculator 4 divided by 5, okay, you'll see it. Okay, if you want to go ahead and do that, just put 4 divided by 5, and you get 0.8. Okay, 0.8 is what that comes out at. So 0.8 of dentists recommend this. Well, we don't say 0.8. We can turn that into a percent now. We know how to do that. We move the decimal twice, and we can say 80%. Now, depending on what you think of percentages, this could influence a little bit. 4 out of 5 sounds great. 4 out of 5, you think, oh, well, then it's really good. But 80% may be, there's still 20% that don't. Because what happens is a lot of times in these, they'll make it small. They'll make this number small so that it looks like a lot out of it. But if you were to multiply this out to 100 dentists, then only 80 out of 100 dentists would recommend it. So, if you went this to 100, then this would be 80. So maybe that would be a little bit more, give you more hesitation. Like, well, there's still quite a few that don't recommend that. So that gives you an idea of what you can do to make this a percentage to see it. Because I know as percentages, we have a better grasp of something. Now, if they tell you right off, hey, 50% of these people like this or do this, then you know right away the percentage. It's being gave right to you, 50% or 75%, or whatever percentage they use. The grades, now, they're given to you as a percent. When I do a test, I give you a percentage because I know students like to see that. They like to see the grade because it's instantly recognizable as what they got. Like I see a 72, I know I got a 72. But sometimes some of your homework scores or some other classes or some, things that don't do the percentage for you, you may have got like an 18 out of 20. Maybe it was a 20-point assignment and you got an 18 out of 20. And we see it written as a fraction a lot of times. On your paper, you'll get it back and it'll say 18 out of 20 points. And I know a lot of students, now there's some know right away what to do with this, but I have a lot of students that kind of just accept that as it is. Think, well, that's good, 18 out of 20 is good, but they still don't quite know what percentage is that, what average is that. So we just do it like we did the 4 out of 5, except now they've given us, it's 18 out of 20. So we're just going to put in our calculator. Now, in grades wise, what we're meaning is you maybe had 20 questions and you got 18 of them right. So you got 18 out of 20 right. So you're going to figure out how much percentage you got right. So you just stick in your calculator 18 divided by 20, and it's 0.9, which we turn into a percent, is 90%. So if you got an 18 out of 20, then you would have got a 90% on that assignment. Now tomorrow, hopefully I'm going to get into weighted grades because that's how your grades are. The assignments aren't as worth as much as the test. So there's an extra step you have to do. It's not just that you got a 90 on this homework assignment and you got a 90 on the test so that you should have a 90 right away. That's not how that works because the tests are worth more. So these actually, even though it comes out to that you got a 90% on that assignment, it's not as worth as much. And we'll go through that more tomorrow. But I first want to just lay the groundwork of how to turn this into a percentage. So you just divide this into this. You got a 90% on that homework assignment. Let's say, so this is just one assignment, okay? Like 4 out of 5. Maybe you took a 5-point assignment. You got 4 out of 5. You got an 80% on that. Maybe they just write on your paper. You got, like on your test, you get back, you got a 50, hopefully not. But you got like a 75 or an 80. But this is just talking about one score. So like one homework assignment. What happens if you get more than one homework assignment? So let's say you are trying to average out your grade and let's say you got a 90 on one test and you got 100 on another, and you want to know what your average is. Now, like I said, we'll go through tomorrow what that means because they're tests and you put in your homework with that. But let's just say you're trying to find, well, how am I doing so far? I've taken 2 tests. How's my test average doing? And some of you guys already maybe know what the average of these two are. Obviously, it's going to be right in between them. It's going to be right in the middle, which we know is going to be a 95. But how did we get there? What happens when they're not this easy? How do you get there? So what you have to do is if you have more than one number, you have to add those two numbers together. Now it gets kind of weird because you say, well, I thought that we do 190 divided by possible 200. You could do it that way, but that's looking at it like as a 90 out of 100 on one test and 100 out of 100 on another, and then you end up having to divide by 2. It gets really weird to do it that way. And so when you get to more than one test, we're not looking out of the possible anymore because they've already turned these into percents. So you're just trying to find the average percent now. So in that case, all you have to do is say, okay, I have two test scores. I'm going to add them together. And I'm going to divide by however many tests there are. And so if you took two tests, you're going to divide that by 2. And what's nice about this is because these are already percentages, and we're just taking that and finding the average, our answer is already going to be the percentage we need. It's not going to be a decimal that we have to turn into a percent. It may have a decimal in it sometimes, but we are leaving the decimal where it's at. So if I take this and go 190 divided by 2, that's a 95. Remember I said that the average is going to be right in between the two. So when you add the two together and divide by however many tests, that's going to give you where your test average is. Let's do it for a little bit, for some more numbers. And this one's going to be one that we can't necessarily do in our head. So let's say I scored a 95 on a test, and then I got 100. Okay, and then let's say I had a bad day and come in and just was like, oh, got an 80, and then let's say I got a 90 and finished out with a 90. So because you can score the same score on a test, meaning I could score 90 on one and 90 on another. That's two different test scores. Okay, so that's going to go into my average. So first off, we're going to add all those up together. So 195, 275, 365, 455. Add up all your numbers. So when you add those numbers up, you get 455. And then how many tests were there? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So we're going to divide that by 5. Excuse me. I sneezed beyond the whiteboard into my sleeve. So we're good on both fronts. But basically now, okay, we've got the 5 test scores. This is what they added up to, and now we're going to divide by 5. So when you divide this by 5, we get a 91. Okay, 91 even. It could have been, this is what I'm talking about. You could have a decimal. It could have not come out even, been like 91.7. And me as a teacher, if you have a 91.7 at the end and you're looking for your grade at the end, it would probably be bumped up to a 92, meaning I round up in that case. But here's where you're at, 91 even. So the average of these test scores is a 91. Now, if you sit and think about that, the reason for that is you're going to be close to these numbers because you had a really high test score beyond 90, but then you had just as low, below 90, and then this one kind of brings it up just a little bit because it's only one test score. So compared to all the other ones, it doesn't bring it up to 95 because you only made one of those. So you start to see how averages work, and as a teacher, I deal with this all the time to where I can kind of know where the averages are going to be. But I think it helped you as a student to be able to. I always had students when I had high school, when I taught high school and middle school, I always tried to have them figure out their own grades because I did that all through school. Obviously, I loved math, but it helped me kind of know how I was doing and not just wait, completely on what was given to me as my tests, as my scores. Now, obviously, I had to wait for the test to be returned to even know what I got. But beyond that, I could know what my grade was going to be and kind of know in advance how I could do on a test. Not that I sat and thought, hey, if I get a 70, then I'm okay. I mean, I always tried to do the best I could, but at least it gave me comfort to know, hey, even if I make a 70, I'm still going to be okay because I know what the average would be. So I'm hoping this will be something that you can use. So here's, I wanted to do a couple like that. Another word for average that you're going to see in math is called mean, and that's spelled just like the word mean, like something's really mean. And I remember this one because averages, we're going to later do median and mode, but averages kind of take the most work because you got to add up all the numbers, you got to do division. And so I always kind of remember it by being the meanest. Like the most work to me is mean. It's like I know it's kind of silly, but that's how I keep it straight. It's like, hey, it's really mean to have to figure out average. It's good that you know how, but it takes work. So that's a word that is used for average. And really, this we'll use not so much when we're talking about test scores, uh, more when we're talking about just averaging numbers. Because we got to know that we use it for test scores, what I was just doing, but it's not limited to that. So let's say I have these numbers here, and this you're going to see that these aren't most likely test scores. It could be. I've had, when I taught high school, I've had this before. But here, let's say these numbers are up there. And like I said, now these would be terrible test scores, 12%, 17. So we're taking it out of the realm of test and realize that we could find the mean or the average of these numbers. So all we do to find the mean of these is we add them up and divide by however many they are. So 12 plus 17 is 29, plus 19 is 48, 68, 104. Okay, let me double check my math there. 29, 48, 68, yeah, 104. And so 104 divided by 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 numbers. And so when I go to divide that, I get gotta start a decimal. I don't put it there. I need to go back to math lab myself. 5 into 48. So 20.8 is my average or my mean of these numbers. Once again, it's close to, you're going to find out when we do median and mode that a lot of times they're all close together. It's kind of close to the middle number here because this one's so high, it brings these others up, okay? It brings the other averages up. It helps them. We call this sometimes an outlier, meaning it's so much higher than the other numbers. You'll learn as you go on and you start learning more about averages. That would be like in a statistics class. You'll learn about outliers. Like, well, if I'm looking at, if I'm looking at averages, trying to figure out what most people answered, this one's kind of out on its own. We do it with test scores. I've had teachers say, we're going to throw out your lowest test score, meaning you did really well on all these tests, but everybody has a really bad day, and we throw out your lowest test score. We don't really do that here. I don't really do that here because we don't have that many tests, and such a shortened class. But I've done that, in where you maybe have 20 tests throughout the year. You think, hey, that one that was really bad that you got a 0 on or a 10%, I'm going to throw that one out. It's an outlier. It's not really like the rest. And so, another way grades do that is in curves. They'll have that one student that just always gets 100 or something, and I'm talking mainly high school. We see that where someone, oh wow, they always get 100. Well, maybe in a curve, you take that student out, that outlier, and work with where everybody else usually is. So those are terms you learn as you go on, but the average or the mean of these numbers is 20.8, okay? I'm going to put some, so basically, just to recap, 4 out of 5, that you can turn into a fraction, make a decimal, and then that's your percentage. Grades, if you need 17 out of 50, 17 out of 20, that means you got a, whatever you got on that. That'd be a 90, no, that'd be an 85%. Some of you guys have had me before know that I've done bonus points, so I know you've seen where maybe you got a 21 out of 20. Okay, and you said, well, I thought that wasn't possible. Well, if I give a bonus point, it is. Meaning it was 20 questions, you got all 20 of them right, and then I did a bonus point, you got 21 out of 20. Well, if you take in your calculator and still do 21 divided by 20, okay, 21 divided by 20 is a 1.05. And I've had students ask, well, how did I get 105% on that? Well, because you got the bonus point, move the decimal over, that's 105%, okay? So that's kind of how those work, those bonus points. If you had gotten a 20 out of 20, you would have got 100%, but you actually did one better, which is where I get that percentage from. So, that gives you an idea. But what I want you to do for your assignment, and then you'll take a photo and upload it of that, is, and your notes as well. So I want you to find these averages as percentages. Okay, so you're gonna not only turn them into a decimal, but then make them a percentage. And we know how to do that because that was the whole first unit. So 3 out of 5. Okay. 5 out of 7. And I'll make that a fraction already. Let's say you took an assignment, got a 17 out of 20. You're going to make these percentages. So tell me what percent you got. And then let's say this one I want to know, here's your percentages. These are all test scores, and I want to know what your average percentage was. So 75%, 80%. I'm not going to write percent every time. 80, and 90, and 100. Tell me what your average percent was on that. And we'll do another one of those. So let's say you had a bad day, you got 62, 87, 94, 98, 99, and 100. Okay? So tell me what your average percent. And then this last one, I want you to find the mean. And I use that word because this is not going to be a percent. This is just going to be the mean of these numbers, meaning you're just adding them, dividing by however many are. That's the mean. 15, 12, 30, 40, and 15 again. Okay, so find the mean of those numbers. 15, 12, 30, 40, and 15. Okay? And make sure you upload the photo and hit submit. I know a couple still have not hit submit, so make sure you hit submit on that.